one more important concept before we start editing our code is understanding this constructor thing. And what is it? Well, a lot of you might already know it, but I'm going to cover it briefly. But if you have more questions, you can always leave questions. Now we do see that here we have two classes. This one extend the other one. Okay. Now there is something called abstract class. Okay, like this. Now when you define an abstract class, you can have same properties, but in general you shouldn't have the body of a method. Okay, so when you have abstract class, this abstract classes just work like, blueprint for child classes. One thing though, like abstract class itself still works as a parent class or base class. So similarly, it will have a child class. So this is a child class. So car class extends the vehicle class. Okay, all right, and then this class itself has its own properties. Now all these properties once again would be able to extend or override actually in our child class. Okay, all right. Now one of the properties of this abstract class is that if you try to instantiate it, you'll get error. For example, var vehicle, let's see, so as you see here we have an error. Abstract class cannot be instantiated. Try creating an instance of a concrete subtype. So it's telling you over here, go ahead and make this class a parent class of a child class and use that child class to create an instance like we did earlier. So you cannot work like this. Then someone may ask, why do you have this abstract class? Once again, I said that in abstract classes, they work as a blueprint, okay? Which means that there are some given criterias, properties, and child class can use them, and child class can also add more on the top of it. So abstract class works as the base. It's the base, and on the top of it, you add more and more stuff, okay? So that's why we call it abstract class, because it's a blueprint, okay? But it doesn't really do anything. Like when you create a building, the building will have foundation underground, right? Without that building, without that foundation, your building will not stand, right? And that foundation defines how tall that building should be and how strong that building should be, right? So that's what the abstract classes do. And at the same time, just like foundation, this also works as a parent class. Like when you create a building, on the top of foundation, we create more and more layers. So we have abstract class. On the top of this, we may add more functions in our child class. For example, here you can have a class, you can have a method, okay? You can say car type. Okay, that's it. And here you say land runner, whatever it is, okay? So it's just a type of the car, okay? But this one is not defined over here, okay? It's just defined within this one. So we have wheels num, and at the same time we have car type, okay? So this is not going to work. So what do you have to do here? You have to say var car, and then we'll not have any problems. So here we could say car type. As you can see, we can say car dot wools type or wools num. Okay, it's still gonna work. As you see over here, it's printed. So one of the basic idea of programming in a lot of other places that work like this, like Java, PHP, C#, that you will have an abstract class, and it's something that you should be doing like this. This is a common convention and programming rules, okay? So most of the time, if you app becomes bigger, complex, so you will have blueprint in your app. So rest of the app has to follow the blueprints and work on that. All right. Anyway, now back to this idea, how the constructor works. So this is something called constructor. Okay. So now you have a class name and you define a method without the body, and the same as the class name, that's called constructor. So this is our constructor. Okay, so over here, this vehicle itself is the constructor. Okay, why? Because over here you do see that this is the class name and the method name is also vehicle. So when the class name and method name becomes the same, the method name is called the constructor of that class. So we do have a constructor, but why do we need this thing? In fact, everything works without this constructor, right? Now, see, in this vehicle, I said that whose number is 10, right? What if you don't want to define this value over here? Okay, of course, now it's gonna say, well, this value must be initialized. Now over here you will see that, okay, null nullable instance field rules must be initialized. Okay, so when we assign a value like this, any value, is called initialization. But now over here, this one, it says, okay, this variable value has to be initialized. So one of the ways we could do it over here, okay, rules like this, and this is still work, but now this would cause problem in our child class. Now it would say, okay, in child class you need a constructor like this. This is exactly the same thing that one we have over here. Okay, now of course with this is a problem that it created a new problem. What is the problem? The problem is that, well, this child class itself has a constructor as well. As you can see, there's also a constructor just like this one, but this constructor actually takes values. Okay, takes values, parameters, when it gets initialized, or when we actually instantiate it. When we create an object using this child class, it needs something. So now you do see that when we actually create an object, we call the constructor. You can understand it like this. Okay, now this constructor has this parameter that we need to pass to it, otherwise it's gonna throw an error. So here we can say 4. All right, now let's go ahead and run it. So we see that number is 4. So if you have a constructor in your abstract class, and that constructor takes parameters, and then at the same time your child class has to have that constructor, the same way the parameter should be there, otherwise it's gonna create an error. Now the benefit of having a constructor is this, that you can pass value the way you want. Okay, why? Say for example you want to create another class. So let me go ahead and copy this. Okay, all right, say over here you might say that plain. Okay, okay, plain type. All right, now what about this planes over here? Okay, how many cars, how many wheels should it have? So here I'll say var plain and plain. So now a lot of planes, they might have only 3 wheels, small planes. Okay, so here it's a plain dot wheels num. Now go ahead and print that. Okay, now of course we need to change it to planes wheels number. Okay, planes wheels number. So this is what we see over here. So once you have an abstract class, this could be blueprint for all of your other classes, and at the same time you can customize each of your child class based on this blueprint. So we are still using wheels, number of wheels, but for each child classes they are different. Now how it is possible? It's possible because our child class has a constructor, and our child class has a constructor. Why? The reason is because over here our abstract class has a constructor, and that constructor takes something. All right, so that's how things work over here. So with this we see that the similar idea is implemented over here. So well, this is a child class. Child class is extending this stateless widget class. The stateless widget constructor takes something like this, and that's why we have to pass super.key, something like that. Just exactly same over here we have passed. All right, now with this I think we have good understanding of basic classes and inheritance, as well as abstraction and concrete classes. These are called concrete classes. Concrete means solid, okay, and this is called abstract classes. And extending on abstract classes is called inheritance. So car class inherited vehicle class, plane class inherited vehicle class. And at the same time we have better understanding of how constructor works. So in next session we're gonna dive into this section and start editing.